Lucas had always dreamed of exploring the stars. As a young human explorer, this was his chance to make history by meeting alien species. He had traveled far, across countless planets, in search of knowledge and peaceful alliances. Now, on this quiet green world, he had come to meet one of the most advanced species known in the galaxy. They were called the Erythians, a race of intelligent and curious beings who had lived peacefully for thousands of years. Lucas was standing near the edge of a small clearing in the Erythian village, waiting for the delegation to arrive. The sky was a beautiful shade of purple, and the air was fresh with the scent of alien flowers. The ground beneath his feet was soft, unlike anything he had felt back on Earth. This planet, though unfamiliar, felt alive with energy, and Lucas couldn't help but admire the natural beauty around him. Soon, the Erythian delegation appeared. At the front of the group was Lyra, the young alien woman who had been chosen to guide Lucas during his visit. She was tall, her skin a soft shade of blue with purple undertones. Her eyes were a striking silver, glowing gently under the sunlight. She had small, delicate ears that were pointed, much like those of an elf, which gave her a graceful, otherworldly look. Lucas smiled and extended his hand in greeting. As he had done countless times before with other alien species, but to his surprise, Lyra stopped in her tracks. Her head tilting slightly to the side, her expression one of confusion. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice soft yet curious. Lucas blinked in confusion. "I'm greeting you. Is something wrong?" Lyra frowned, looking at his outstretched hand. "I don't understand. Why would you offer your hand to me first? Shouldn't I be the one to greet you? You are the visitor here?" Lucas, unsure of how to respond, let his hand drop to his side. "In my culture, it's common for a man to greet a woman by offering his hand. It's a sign of respect." Lyra's eyes widened, and she took a small step back. "Respect?" She seemed to mull over the word in her mind. "But you are a male. It makes no sense for a male to greet a female in such a way. The males of my people are the leaders and protectors. Why would you show respect by offering yourself? First, that's not how things work where I'm from." Lucas was taken aback by the intensity of her reaction. He had expected some confusion, but not this level of disbelief. "Well, it's not about dominance," he tried to explain. "It's about showing kindness and equality." But Lyra shook her head. "Equality? There is no equality where I come from. The males are the ones who lead and protect. We follow them. It's the way things have always been." Lucas took a deep breath, realizing that explaining his customs was going to be more complicated than he had imagined. He thought for a moment before offering a simple response. "We humans believe in mutual respect. Doesn't matter whether you are male or female. We treat each other as equals." Lyra crossed her arms and stared at him, clearly puzzled. "But that's strange. How can it be right for a male to defer to a female? It doesn't make sense." Lucas chuckled softly. "I understand that it might be hard to wrap your head around, but the idea is simple. When we respect each other, regardless of gender, it strengthens our connections and helps us work together better." Lyra looked at him with curiosity but still couldn't quite understand. "I don't know if I can accept that," she admitted. "In my society, we believe that strength is important. The strong males protect the weak females. If we start treating everyone the same, how would we know who leads?" Lucas felt a little frustrated but kept his tone gentle. "Lyra, strength isn't just about physical power. It's also about kindness, wisdom, and respect. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is to show respect and offer help when needed." Lyra still seemed unsure, but she nodded slowly. "I see what you're saying, human, but I still don't understand why I should go second when you are clearly the visitor. It seems unnatural." Lucas smiled, feeling a sense of relief that their conversation had moved past the awkwardness. "Well, in our culture, we believe that the person being greeted should feel comfortable. It's a small gesture, but it shows we care about their feelings. It's not about power or strength." Lyra blinked, her expression softening as she looked at him more thoughtfully. She was still confused, but Lucas could see that she was trying to understand. She didn't know what to say, so she simply nodded. "I'll have to think about this." she said quietly as the group continued to walk toward the village. Lyra walked beside Lucas, her eyes darting to him every now and then, clearly still, processing what he had said. It was clear that her world was very different from his, but Lucas felt a small sense of satisfaction. For the first time, they had started a conversation that might bridge the gap between their cultures. He knew. It would take time, but perhaps there was hope that Lyra might one day understand the importance of respect, no matter who went first. After their awkward meeting, Lucas and Lyra walked together toward the village. The air was warm, filled with the sounds of chirping alien birds and rustling leaves. The village was a peaceful place, with large, colorful homes built into the sides of trees. Lucas could see that everything here was different from Earth, yet it felt serene. Despite the beauty of the place, Lyra's mind was still preoccupied with their earlier conversation. She walked beside Lucas, glancing at him now and then, still unsure of his customs. When they reached the village center, Lyra stopped. She looked at Lucas with a serious expression on her face. "I need to understand," she said, her voice firm but curious. "Why is it that your people think it is right for males to defer to females in this way? It seems wrong. It feels like you're saying the male is not strong enough to lead." Lucas paused for a moment, then smiled gently. He was glad that Lyra wanted to understand more, but he knew this conversation was going to be difficult. Was here to build a bridge between their worlds, and that wouldn't happen without explaining his culture in simple terms. "It's not about being weak," Lucas began, choosing his words carefully. "In fact, many humans believe that true strength lies in kindness and cooperation. The idea of respecting others regardless of their gender comes from the belief that everyone has something valuable to offer, and no one should be held back because of who they are." Lyra's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. "But how can that be? The strong protect the weak, don't they? My people believe that males have the strength to lead and to protect. They are the ones who hold power." Lucas nodded, understanding her point. He had read about the Erythians and their strong hierarchical society, where males were expected to be the leaders and protectors. In their world, gender roles were as firmly fixed as the tallest trees in their forests. But he had to help Lyra see beyond her limited perspective. "I understand that," Lucas replied. "But think about it. This way, if everyone is always trying to be the strongest, then there is no room for sharing, no room for teamwork. Humans believe that it's important to work together, using each person's unique strengths to create something greater than what one person can do alone." Lyra was silent for a long moment, her eyes scanning the ground. She seemed lost in thought. Lucas could see that she was processing what he had said, but the idea didn't seem to sit well with her. She had grown up in a culture that valued strength and leadership in the males. It was how her world had always been. "I don't know," she finally said. "I don't think I can accept that. How can a female be in charge? How could she protect anyone if she's not as strong as a male?" Lucas smiled softly. "Being in charge isn't about being the strongest physically. It's about making decisions that benefit everyone, about caring for others and finding ways to solve problems together." Lyra shook her head. That's too different from what I know. I was raised to believe that the strongest males lead. They protect, they fight, and they are the ones in charge. The females follow them. We rely on them to make decisions." Lucas stepped closer to her, wanting to make her see that this was not about strength, but about balance. "But don't you think there's more to leadership than just being strong? Isn't there a place for kindness, understanding, and patience in a leader's role?" Lyra paused, clearly torn. "I never thought of it that way," she admitted. "I always believed that males were simply better at leading." Lucas felt a spark of hope. He realized that this was a crucial moment. Lyra was open to understanding, but her world was so different from his own that the idea of equality seemed foreign to her. He took a deep breath and decided to show her rather than just talk about it. "Why don't you come with me and see for yourself?" Lucas suggested. "We'll work together and see how we can accomplish something, both as equals. You can decide for yourself if working together, regardless of who's male or female, is the right way." Lyra looked uncertain, but agreed. Fine, but I don't understand how this will help. I still believe that my people are right about the roles of males and females. Lucas led Lyra to a small clearing just outside the village, where a large group of Erethian workers were busy with a construction project. They were building new homes, and Lucas was eager to show Lyra how teamwork played a vital role in getting the job done. He approached a group of workers and smiled. "Hi, I'm Lucas. Would you mind if we joined in and helped?" One of the workers, a large male Erethian, nodded. "Of course, human. We appreciate any help you can offer." Lyra stood beside Lucas, watching the workers move with efficiency, each person doing their part. The males lifted heavy materials, while the females managed the tools and organized the workflow. It was clear that everyone had a role to play, but it wasn't defined by gender. Lucas turned to Lyra. "Do you see? It's not about who is stronger or weaker. It's about each person doing what they're best at and working together. Males may be strong, but the females bring their own strengths to the table." Lyra was quiet, her eyes scanning the scene in front of her. For the first time, she saw how the Erethians worked together as a community without regard for who was leading. They all had their roles, but no one was less important than anyone else. "I never thought of it like that," Lyra said quietly. "In my world, the males do all the heavy lifting and decision-making. The females ... We are not meant to be leaders." Lucas smiled, his voice gentle. "Maybe it's time to start thinking of things differently. Strength comes in many forms, and sometimes the strongest leaders are those who are kind, who listen, and who treat others as equals." Lyra looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting a mix of doubt and curiosity. "Maybe you're right," she said. "Maybe there's more to leadership than I've been taught." As they continued to help the workers, Lyra's thoughts seemed to shift. The seeds of change had been planted, and though it would take time, she was starting to see the truth in Lucas's words. There was more to life than power and strength. Sometimes true strength was about understanding, kindness, and the willingness to change. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a soft golden light over the Erethian village. Lucas and Lyra walked side by side, their footsteps quiet against the grassy ground. The morning had been filled with hard work, helping the Erethians build homes and carry materials. Lyra had grown quiet as they worked together, her mind clearly busy with the thoughts Lucas had planted in her head. The idea of mutual respect and equality between males and females seemed strange to her, but the more she saw, the more she started to wonder. Today, Lucas had another plan. He wanted to take Lyra further than just talking about respect and equality. He wanted to show her. He wanted to help her understand that respect wasn't just about gender, but about how people treat each other, no matter who they were. They approached the village's central plaza, where a large crowd of Erethians had gathered. There was a ceremony happening. The chief elder, a wise and respected male Erethian named Zaylor, was about to address the people. He was known for his strength and wisdom, qualities that earned him his position as leader. "Lucas, what is this?" Lyra asked, stopping in her tracks. "What are they doing here?" "This is the ceremonial gathering of the village," Lucas explained. "The chief will speak, and everyone will listen." Lyra seemed uneasy. "In my culture, the males lead, but they also have the power to command. Are humans different in this way?" Lucas smiled. "You'll see soon enough." As they stood near the crowd, the chief elder Zaylor stepped forward. He raised his hand, and the chatter of the crowd quieted. Zaylor was a strong figure, with sharp features and a commanding presence. He had led his people through difficult times and was known for his fair and wise decisions. "Today, we celebrate unity," Zaylor began, his voice carrying across the plaza. "We are a strong people. Because we work together, KOR, males protect, our females nurture, and together we thrive. The roles we play make us whole." Lyra stood still, her eyes fixed on Zaylor. Lucas could see that she was struggling with the idea of equality. He knew it would take time to help her understand, but he felt something shift in her. She was listening, and that was the first step. After the ceremony ended, Lyra turned to Lucas. "In my culture, the words of the leader hold great weight. Zaylor is respected because he is strong and wise. The males lead and the females follow. Lucas nodded. Yes, but respect isn't just about following orders. It's about understanding that everyone has something valuable to contribute. Being a leader doesn't mean you're the strongest or the most powerful. It means you're the one who listens, who cares for others, and who helps guide everyone toward a common goal. Lyra shook her head, clearly still unconvinced. I don't know, Lucas. It's hard to believe that what you're saying is true. In my world, strength is everything. The male leader is the one who makes the decisions. Lucas sighed, but he wasn't giving up. He had to show Lyra that strength wasn't just about power. Lyra, let me show you something. Come with me. He led her to the far side of the village, where a group of females were working on a different project. They were planting crops, working the soil with their hands. The females moved with care and precision, planting seeds in neat rows. Some of them had tools, while others worked the land by hand. Look at this, Lucas said, pointing to the group. These women are just as important as the men. They are helping their people survive. They might not be lifting heavy stones or fighting in battles, but they are building something just as important: life. Without their hard work, the village wouldn't have food to eat. Strength isn't just physical, Lyra. It's about what you bring to the table. Lyra watched the women working in the fields, her brow furrowed in thought. I never thought about it that way, she admitted. But in my world, the males do all the heavy work. They protect, they fight, and they provide for the females. That's the way it's been in your world, but it doesn't have to be that way forever, Lucas said gently. We all have different strengths. The males might be strong physically, but the females bring other strengths. Together, you all make a team. A leader isn't the one who fights the hardest or commands the loudest. It's the one who understands, listens, and works together with others. Lyra's eyes lingered on the women working. So ... You think a female could be a leader too? Not just a male? Absolutely, Lucas replied with confidence. In my world, we have female leaders, and they are just as strong, just as capable. Strength isn't about who you are, but what you do and how you treat others. Lyra looked down at the ground, thinking deeply. She was starting to see what Lucas meant, but it was difficult for her to fully accept. Her whole life she had been taught that strength and leadership were tied to the males. It was a hard belief to shake, but she was trying. I want to understand, Lyra said softly. I want to see if it's really possible. But it feels like everything I've been taught is ... wrong. Lucas smiled warmly. It's not wrong. Lyra, it's just one way of doing things, but it's not the only way. You can still respect your traditions while also seeing the value in change. Leadership can come from anyone, male or female, as long as they have the right heart and mind. Lyra nodded slowly. I think I understand, but it will take time. My people are not ready for such a change, but maybe we can start here. Maybe I can help change things, little by little. Lucas beamed. I believe you can. I'll be here to help. As they walked back to the village together, Lucas could see the spark of understanding in Lyra's eyes. The seeds of change had been planted. It wouldn't happen overnight, but he knew that Lyra's journey had just begun.
Oh.
She was starting. To see that leadership, respect, and strength came in many forms, not just the ones she had been taught all her life. And that was the first step toward true equality. Days passed, and Lucas and Lyra spent more time together in the village. They worked side by side with the Erethian people, and slowly the walls between them began to crumble. Lyra was learning, bit by bit, that leadership wasn't just about strength and authority. But the real test came sooner than either of them expected. One afternoon, as the village was going about its daily routine, an urgent alarm echoed through the trees. A deep, rumbling sound filled the air, causing the villagers to stop what they were doing and look up. Lyra turned sharply, her eyes scanning the horizon. In the distance, dark clouds were gathering, and the sound of heavy footsteps was growing louder. There was a tension in the air. What's happening? Lucas asked, his heart racing. It's a group of rogue Erethians, Lyra said, her voice tense. They've been causing trouble for some time now. They believe that the leadership of the village has become too weak. They don't want to share power, and they're willing to take it by force. Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. They're coming here? Lyra nodded. Yes, they want to take control of the village and the resources we've been gathering. They think that only the strongest should lead. Lucas felt his instincts kick in. What can we do? Lyra's eyes hardened with determination. We must defend the village. Males of my people are strong, but we will need everyone too. Fight together, females and males alike. Without hesitation, Lucas grabbed a nearby spear and ran toward the village defenses. He could see the approaching rogue Erythians now, their figures moving swiftly through the trees. They were heavily armed, their faces twisted with anger. The peaceful village was about to face a dangerous threat. Lyra followed closely behind, her eyes sharp and focused. She had always been trained to fight, but never for a cause like this. She had always been taught to follow the lead of the males, to wait for them to make the decisions. But now, for the first time, she was standing beside Lucas as an equal, ready to fight for her people as the rogue group approached the village. Lyra quickly organized the villagers, directing both males and females to their positions. The males took up positions near the gates, prepared to protect the village, while the females worked together to set up traps and barricades. The air was thick with tension, but Lyra could see that the teamwork they had started to build was already making a difference. Lucas stood beside her, his heart pounding. He had fought in battles before, but this was different. This wasn't a war between nations, it was a struggle for the very ideals that had brought him to this alien world. He was fighting not just for survival, but for the beliefs he held. Dear, equality, respect, and teamwork. The rogue Erythians finally arrived at the village gates. They were a formidable sight, with their battle gear and weapons raised. Their leader, a tall male Erythian named Rogan, stepped forward and shouted in a booming voice. Your leaders are weak, Rogan called. You are ruled by those who do not deserve to lead. Hand over control of this village and no one will be harmed. Refuse, and we will take it by force. Lyra stood tall beside Lucas, her voice unwavering. You don't understand. Leadership is not about strength alone. It's about understanding, respect, and working together. We will not bow to your threats. Rogan sneered. Your words are weak, just like your people. Lyra glanced at Lucas, who gave her a reassuring nod. It was time to show Rogan and his followers that strength came in many forms. Without warning, Lyra raised her hand, signaling the villagers to move. The males held their ground at the gates, while the females quickly set their traps. As the rogue Erythians rushed forward, the traps were triggered, causing them to stumble into pits and barriers. The village had prepared well, and for the first time, Lyra saw the real power of working together. The battle raged on, with the villagers using both strategy and skill to defend their home. Lucas fought alongside Lyra, his heart beating fast as he dodged strikes and helped push back the attackers. He could see the determination in Lyra's eyes as she led the charge, directing her people with authority and calm. At one point, Rogan broke through the defenses and charged directly toward Lyra. He was faster and stronger, but Lyra stood her ground, her voice steady as she called for reinforcements. Lucas, seeing the danger, moved quickly to intercept him. Rogan and Lucas clashed, their weapons ringing against each other. It was a fierce battle, with each fighter using everything they had to gain the upper hand. But Lucas's training and quick thinking allowed him to land a decisive blow, knocking Rogan off balance. Lyra, seeing the opening, rushed in and disarmed Rogan, holding him at bay. She looked down at the fallen rogue leader, her eyes filled with both anger and resolve. You may be strong, Rogan, Lyra said, her voice steady. But true strength comes from unity, from understanding. This village will never fall to your hate. Rogan growled, but did not try to resist. He knew he had lost. The rogue group, seeing their leader captured, began to retreat, realizing they were no match for the strength of a united village. As the dust settled, the villagers gathered, their faces filled with both exhaustion and pride. Otto stood at the front, her posture straight and commanding. Lucas stood beside her, his heart swelling with pride. They had done it together. Lyra turned to Lucas, her face softening. "You were right," she said quietly. "I see now. It wasn't just about strength. It was about everyone working together, male and female, old and young. That's what makes us strong." Lucas smiled. "Exactly. Leadership isn't about being the strongest. It's about guiding others, caring for them, and working with them to achieve something greater than any individual could alone." Lyra nodded. "I think my people will understand that now. I'll make sure they do." As they stood together, looking out over the village, Lucas knew that this battle had been more than just a fight for survival. It had been a fight for change. For the ideals that both he and Lyra now shared, it was a victory not just for the village, but for the future of the Erythians. The village was quiet now, the battle over. The once tense air had shifted. All that remained was the sound of the villagers catching their breath, feeling the relief of victory. The rogue Erythians had retreated, defeated, and their leader, Rogan, was bound and held by the villagers. There was a sense of triumph, but also a quiet exhaustion that weighed heavily on everyone. Lyra stood at the front of the village, her eyes scanning the crowd of villagers who had gathered around. The males were still on edge, their muscles tense from the battle, but there was a look of respect in their eyes when they looked at Lyra. She had led them through the fight, and the unity they had shown had been stronger than any of them expected. Lucas stood beside her, his arm resting on the spear he had carried through the battle. He could see the change in Lyra's eyes. The once uncertain, confused alien girl was now standing tall, her confidence radiating. There was something different about her now. She had led her people, and they had followed her not because of her gender, but because of her wisdom, her strength, and her ability to unite them. Lyra turned to Lucas, her voice soft but firm. "You were right," she said, her tone filled with a quiet understanding. "I didn't see it before, but now I understand. It's not about the strongest male leading. It's about the one who can listen, guide, and work together with others." Lucas smiled, glad that she was starting to understand. It's about leadership coming from a place of respect and care. Strength isn't just about physical power. It's about what you can give to the people you lead. Lyra's eyes wandered to the captured Rogan, who was still being held by the warriors. "I think my people need to hear this," she said, her voice filled with determination. "They need to understand that the way we've always done things isn't the only way. We can still be strong, but in a different way." Lucas nodded. "That's the first step toward change. It won't be easy, but if anyone can bring that change, it's you." For a moment, they stood in silence, watching the villagers slowly gather the remains of the battle. The wounded were being treated, the injured were cared for, and the sense of camaraderie that had formed during the fight was still strong. It was clear that something had shifted in the village, and it was more than just the physical victory. Lyra had seen firsthand the power of unity, the strength that came from respect and cooperation. As the evening sky began to darken, the village elders called for a meeting. The villagers gathered in the central plaza, their faces somber yet filled with hope. Lyra stood at the front, with Lucas by her side, ready to address her people. Zalor, the elder chief, stepped forward, his expression unreadable. He was a strong leader, respected by all, but there was something different in the air tonight. He looked to Lyra, then to the others, before speaking. "The rogue Erythians had been defeated," Zalor began. "This village owes its survival to the strength and unity of all of you. The battle was hard, but we stood together. For that, we owe Lyra our respect. She led us when we needed her most." Era felt a wave of emotion wash over her, but she held it back. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment when her people would start to see the truth of what she had been trying to teach them. She stepped forward, meeting Zyler's gaze with confidence. "Thank you, Zyler," she said, her voice strong. "But I believe we all share in this victory. It wasn't just about me, it was about each of us, working together. It's males and females, old and young. We all played a part. And that is what true strength is." Zalor looked at her for a long moment, his eyes narrowing as if searching for something. Finally, he nodded, his deep voice filled with thoughtfulness. "You have changed? I see now that there is more to leadership than power and strength. I once believed only the strong should lead. But maybe it is time for us to consider that strength can come in many forms. The crowd fell silent, every eye on Lyra. She could feel the weight of their expectations, but for the first time, she felt ready. Ready to change the way her people thought, ready to show them that leadership wasn't about domination, but about working together. I know change will not come. Icily, Lyra continued, our traditions have shaped us for generations, but I believe that we can still honor our past while building a better future. We can be strong and united, not because of who leads, but because of how we work together. There was a long pause, the air thick with anticipation, and then slowly the villagers began to nod. The elders exchanged glances, and Zaylor stepped forward once more, his voice strong and clear. Lyra, you have earned our respect, Zaylor said, his tone filled with finality. You have shown us that strength does not lie solely in power. You have led us with wisdom, and for that we follow you. The words hit Lyra like a wave, a rush of emotion flooding her chest. For the first time, her people were seeing her not just as a female leader, but as a leader in her own right. The weight of generations of tradition was still heavy, but the moment felt like a breakthrough. It was the beginning of something new, something better. Lucas stood beside her, his heart full of pride. He knew that Lyra's journey wasn't over, but this was a turning point. The village had seen her strength, not in the way she fought, but in the way she led, in the way she cared. As the night settled in, the village gathered to celebrate their victory. It wasn't just a victory over the rogue Arethians, it was a victory over old ways of thinking. It was a victory for Lyra, for the village, and for a future where strength was defined by respect, unity, and cooperation. Lucas smiled as he watched Lyra, her face glowing in the light of the campfires. Knew that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but Lyra was ready. And so was he. The village was quieter now, the dust of battle slowly settling. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting a soft orange glow over the land. Lyra stood at the edge of the village, gazing out into the distance. It had been days since the battle. With the rogue Arethians, and the villagers had slowly returned to their normal routines, but for Lyra, things were far from normal. Everything had changed. She had changed. Beside her stood Lucas, the human who had come to her world with a mission to learn, but who had ended up teaching her just as much. The last few days had been a whirlwind of emotions for both of them. Lyra had been tested in ways she never expected, and she had come out stronger because of it. And much of that strength had come from the friendship that had blossomed between her and Lucas. He had shown her that leadership wasn't about dominance or power. It was about working together, respecting others, and listening to those around you. That was the true strength. You've done it, Lucas said, breaking the silence. Focus was warm, filled with pride. You've changed everything. Lyra turned to face him, her silver eyes shining in the fading light. I never thought it would be possible, she admitted, her voice soft but filled with conviction. For so long, I believed that strength was all that mattered. But now I see that there's more to it. It's about how we treat each other, how we respect each other. It's about working together. Lucas smiled. It's about time, don't you think? Your people are strong, but they're even stronger when they work together. Lyra nodded. It's hard to change the way people think, but I can see now that it's worth it. I've seen it in the faces of my people. The way they look at me now, it's different. They're starting to understand. And they're following you, Lucas said. That's the most important part. They're not following you because of your gender, but because they believe in you as a leader. Lyra's chest swelled with pride at his words, but also with a deep sense of gratitude. She knew that none of this would have been possible without Lucas. He had been there, teaching her, supporting her when she needed it most. He had shown her that change was possible, that even in a world built on old traditions, there was room for new ideas. I couldn't have done it without you, Lyra said, her voice quiet but sincere. You've helped me see things in a way I never could on my own. You've taught me more than I could ever repay. Lucas shook his head. No need to repay me. This is your journey, Lyra. I was just here to help guide you, but you did all the work. You found your own strength. Lyra smiled at him, a genuine smile that lit up her face. It wasn't a smile of uncertainty or fear anymore, but one of confidence and understanding. She had found her place, not just as a leader, but as someone who understood what it meant to care for and respect those she led, and she had done it in a way that had brought her people together, showing them a new path forward. "Thank you, Lucas," Lyra said, her voice soft but full of meaning. "I won't forget this." They stood together, watching as the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky. The village behind them was peaceful, quiet now that the threat had passed. But the true victory wasn't the defeat of the rogue, Erethians. It was the change that had taken place within Lyra and within the village. It was the beginning of something new, something stronger. "Where will you go now?" Lyra asked, turning to Lucas, her voice tinged with sadness. "Your mission is over. You've helped me more than I could ever have imagined. Will you leave?" Lucas looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "I don't know yet," he said slowly. "I came here to learn, but I've learned so much more than I expected. This place, it's not just a stop on my journey. Something important to me, and I'm not sure I'm ready to leave yet." Lyra's heart skipped a beat at his words. She had grown so close to him in the time they had spent together. He had shown her a side of the universe she had never seen, a side where people cared for each other, worked together, and respected one another. She had come to value his friendship more than she had ever expected. "I'm glad to hear that," Lyra said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "I hope you stay. I think we still have a lot to learn from each other." Lucas smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "I think we do." So, under the stars, the unlikely friends stood side by side. They had come from different worlds, had faced different struggles, but in the end, they had found something in each other. A bond forged in the fire of battle, in the lessons of respect and unity, and in the belief that no matter who you were or where you came from, strength was something you could find in the way you treated others. Lyra had started her journey thinking that strength was only about power and dominance, but now she knew that true strength was about working together. It's about lifting each other up, and about understanding that everyone had something valuable to offer. She had learned that strength didn't have to come from the male leader, that women could be just as strong, and that leadership could come from anyone willing to care for those around them. For Lucas, this journey had taught him something as well. He had come to a far-off world to explore, to learn, and to make his mark. But in the end, it was the people he met, the friendships he built, and the lessons he learned that had made the biggest impact as the night deepened and the village settled into silence. Lucas and Lyra stood together, not just as visitors or strangers, but as friends who had changed each other's worlds forever.